Sarah Palin was a member of the GOP, Republican Party from Alaska, ran with John McCain against John McCain's, I guess, will, because it was obvious that he was not in favor of her until he had no choice. They pushed her aesthetic. They showed her red shoes. They showed her lips. They were always talked about how pretty she is, which is what they do with Melania, because there's nothing of substance to promote. So you promote the aesthetic. Turns around and then tries to sexualize Kamala Harris, demean her, and berate her for the very same. And Kamala is not a sexualized candidate. Her past or her imperfections or whatever it is about her, they don't lead with that with Kamala, because Kamala is a force. Right. And I just wanted to speak to that, because I think that the over-sexualization and the weaponizing the sexual beings in terms of being Black women in America, which is, it's so sickening to see them call her a hoe. And it's just very interesting to me to watch how these evangelists, these politicians, are weaponizing this against Kamala, and to use Sarah Palin, to me, is so ludicrous.
Well, first of all, whatever you think about Kamala Harris's politics, you cannot deny her qualifications. Right. You cannot deny that this is a brilliant, educated, articulate, accomplished Black woman. You can't take that from her, regardless of what you think about her politics. Someone said to me, well, Sarah Palin was a well-established politician when she was selected as VP. No, let's not remake history. Sarah Palin had been the mayor of a small Alaskan town called Wasilla. She had only been the governor of Alaska for 18 months before John McCain selected her as his VP nominee. So a year and a half. Now, Kamala Harris was a district attorney for 8 years. She was the attorney general for 6 years. And she was a U.S. senator for 3 years before being selected as VP. So 3 major political offices encompassing 17 years of elected office before she became the vice presidential nominee. There is no comparison in terms of the experience. There is no comparison in terms of her, her Howard education, her law degree. So there's no educational comparison. There's no comparison between a Kamala Harris and a Sarah Palin. As you stated, Sarah Palin was a sexualized candidate. It was all about aesthetics. Look at her. There was nothing intelligent about her whatsoever. And she comes out and she says that she would never prostitute. And that word was used deliberately. She would never prostitute her convictions to get positive media coverage like Kamala Harris is getting. Listen, the negative media coverage that Sarah Palin got was not about her prostituting herself. It was about her being herself. Let's just be real. Sarah Palin was dumb as a box of rocks. Here is the lady who is saying that she sat on national TV and said she had foreign policy experience because she could see Russia from her backyard. Here's a lady who could not name one book, could not name one newspaper that she read on a consistent basis, because just like Trump today, she didn't read. She knew nothing about how the government worked. She knew nothing about American history. She was a running blooper reel. The only reason you remember Sarah Palin is because of the Saturday Night Live skits, all of the comedic skits from your colleagues that happened during that time. Because think about it realistically, how often do we remember the losing vice presidential nominee? If you asked your average friend or associate, who was on the ticket with Mitt Romney, most folk couldn't even guess Paul Ryan. If you ask folk who was on the ticket with Bob Dole, or who was on the ticket with any one of the losing candidates, they would be hard pressed to come up with a name. They remember Sarah Palin because, like I said, she was a running blooper reel. And then you have this guy out here in Massachusetts who puts up this sign talking about Joe and the hoe, referring to Kamala Harris. And my thing is this, and someone said to me, well, she slept with Willie Brown and he was a married man. I said, oh, so that makes her a hoe? I said, if that's the case, then why are y'all calling Melania this elegant first lady? Because she was a soft porn model who was sleeping with a married man named Donald Trump and doing naked photo shoots in fur on his private jet. I said, so if Kamala is a hoe, then Melania is a super hoe. Y'all need to leave that stuff alone. But of course, they think they can get away with saying about black women what they would never say about white women. At the end of the day, here it is. And I challenge anybody watching this, find me the nude pictures of Kamala on the internet. I don't have to do much to get a search to find some of the first lady sitting in the White House.
That's right. And, and to further that, like to go into politics, when people say that Kamala is corrupt or that she implemented policies that hurt the Black community, I as a critical thinker think it's okay to challenge her policies. What I don't think is okay is to hold her to a higher standard than all of these white male politicians who have been corrupt and been doing this stuff to our communities since we got here. And so that's the hypocrisy that I can't deal with. It's like Black women since slavery, feeding people's children, breastfeeding people's children, are always expected to be held to a higher standard than everybody else, while not receiving the protections or the benefits of other people. And it pisses me off when it comes to her.
I have some concerns with some of the cases that were handled by Kamala's office, without a doubt. But at the end of the day, she was a prosecutor.
That's her job.
That was her job. Her job was to send people to jail. As with any attorney general or district attorney across the United States. And so, I believe that she should be held accountable for those cases that rise to the level of being suspect in terms of how they were handled. And she's got to answer to that without a doubt. But to your point, you're absolutely correct. Listen, Joe Biden is the architect and the father of modern day mass incarceration. Mm-hmm. There were times when Republicans would come up with crime legislation that Joe Biden would say was too soft, wasn't harsh enough. He was the one who wanted longer sentencing. He was the one who wanted people kept in jail longer. He was the one who came up with the truth in sentencing aspect of the crime bill that incentivized states in order to build prisons and change laws. People always say, well, you know what? Mass incarceration has more to do with people going to jail in the states. But yes, it was incentivized by the crime bill. The crime bill that said we will give you billions of dollars to build prisons if you make 3 strikes laws, if you keep people in prison longer, if you give longer sentencing. So yes, within 10 years of the time that the crime bill was signed, the prison population in America doubled. That is the legacy of Joe Biden. You can't have a problem with Kamala and not have a problem with Joe Biden and a number of other white male politicians. You can't have a problem with her and not have a problem with Bill Clinton, who signed it into law. And you can't have a problem with them without having a problem with most of the members at that time of the Congressional Black Caucus who supported the crime bill. You can't have a problem with them without having a problem with Bernie Sanders, who voted for the crime bill. So there's a high level of hypocrisy in terms of the standard that they're holding Kamala to that they won't hold others to.